Good day and welcome to this short video on the Learner Management System induction. My name is Shingai Chianya and I'm the Assistant Technical Manager at the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Zimbabwe. I will be taking you through the assessment process. So the objectives of this short video is to cover 7 main topics. The first one being assessment, the bigger picture, under which we will then discuss a bit about what assessment is and what it entails and how it then arises from in the ICAS training program. We'll also discuss the structure and the content of the ICAS training program. And we'll also discuss the key players in the assessment process, the trainees, the assessor, and the reviewer. Another topic that we'll cover are the rating scales. Then we'll discuss decision trees, and then assessment instruments, and then finally we will discuss developmental needs. Right, let's get straight into it. So assessment, the bigger picture. So the goal of accounting and education and training is to produce someone who is not only competent in terms of accounting skills, but to also mold and develop someone who is able to contribute positively to the profession and society at large. So what we then see is that training or what ICAS has done is that they have then developed a training program that nurtures accountants or prospective accountants from just basic number crunchers to someone who is outstanding in the society, who is able to contribute positively to industry, who is also able to contribute positively to society at large. So in terms of the ICAS training program, it includes workplace-based activities for developing an individual's competencies to perform tasks relevant to the role of a professional accountant. So you'd see that training exercises cognitive skills, right? So training in terms of the ICAS training program, it includes on-the-job and off-the-job training. On the job entails the tasks that are done within achieving a certain job description. We are saying these are the actual tasks that you then do while you're on the job. For example, if you are in audit, the actual auditing will be on the job training. And then there is an option also for off the job of the job training, where we then develop a theoretical situation, and then you then simulate yourself doing that job. It is important for us to note that both the on-the-job and off-the-job training should be performed in the context of the workplace, with reference to the specific roles or tasks performed by a professional accountant. So as such, it can include any activity purposefully designed to improve the ability of an individual to fulfill the practical experience requirements for qualification as a professional accountant. So it is important for the workplace training and experience to complement the formal education that one is getting. So that is why you find that when one is trained to be an accountant, while he's doing your CTA, you'll be covering areas like taxation, financial reporting, auditing, and financial management. So you'd find that these programs have been infused into the day-to-day working of someone who is training either inside public practice or even training outside public practice. So having defined what training is, we then need to measure the level to which, or the extent to which an individual or a trainee has achieved the objectives of training or achieved the required skills. So this is where assessment then comes in. And we are saying that assessment is the collection and evaluation of evidence of a trainee's work so that a decision can be made on whether or not one is competent in those skills, or one has met the required achievements or the required level to be termed competent. So you'd see that what training does, it defines the cognitive skills, right? While its assessment then comes through to measure the level, or it measures basically the cognitive skills that have been defined by training. So it is important for us to note that there is a key difference between assessment and training. And this key difference is that training describes the competencies and prescribes the degree or level of competence required, while assessment measures the degree to which these levels of competence are achieved and identifies any opportunities to improve them. So you'd see that a critical factor in effective assessment is the provision of evidence. So the evidence has to be sufficient and appropriate, right? And evidence in the ICAS training program is defined as the proof produced by a trainee that shows that he complies with the requirements for being found competent. As I highlighted, that the evidence has to be sufficient and appropriate. That is, it has to meet a certain quality level. And when the assessor then goes on to evaluate the quality level, you'd see that there are some key questions that he or she as the assessor should ask themselves. So the first one is that, is the trainee able to do a certain job, right? And then the second thing that the assessor should ask him or herself is that, what other learning does the trainee need to achieve to be deemed qualified? So it is the assessor's responsibility to ensure that the evidence, any evidence collected, is sufficient and appropriate. And it is this evidence that is then used to make an accurate judgment on the trainee's competency level. So that is the training program and what assessment is. Now let's get into the actual ICAS training program. What is it really, and what does it contain? So you'd find that the ICAS training program contains 7 core subject areas. These are namely accounting and external reporting, auditing and assurance, financial management, management and decision-making, risk management and governance, and finally, taxation. So the ones that I've gone through, or the ones that I've highlighted, these are your technical skill areas. But as I highlighted in the first slide, we want someone who not only is competent technically, but someone who is able to make an impact in society. So what ICAS has done now is that they have then included another subject area, which is called professional skills, to make them a total of 7 core subject areas. Having done that, you'd see that what ICAS then does is that it then groups these 7 core subject areas into 3 groups, which are compulsory, elective, and residual categories. So under each of these core subject areas, you'd find that there are close to 100 tasks that are relevant to the range of subjects that one must perform during the period of their training program, in order for them to then say that they are competent in accounting and external reporting, they are competent in audit and assurance. So all trainees are required to gain exposure on the 7 core subject areas. However, the extent to which they must display competency is then dependent on the nature of the industry, the training office is in, the business model of the training office as well. So this diagram here basically summarizes what I've been trying to say, where we see that there is a circle in the middle which comprises of compulsory skills. And compulsory skills are basically two skills, that is accounting and the pervasive skills or the professional skills that I highlighted earlier. So by compulsory, what we mean is that every accountant that is produced through the ICAS training program should have displayed these skills in an advanced or complex context or in an advanced environment. So what are we saying really? We are saying that whether you are training inside public practice or training outside public practice, by the end of your contract, you should have achieved a level 4 in terms of all the tasks under accounting. You should also have exhibited a level 4 proficiency in your professional skills. So that is compulsory skills. Whether you are in tip or top, you have to display these skills at an advanced level. Then comes what we call elective skills. So elective skills are what depends really on the industry that one has been attached, or the organization that one has been attached in during their training contract. So you'd find that there are people who train with big organizations that provide taxation. You'll also find that there are individuals who are part of organizations that provide auditing services. Then you'd also find that there are a few individuals who are training within organizations who are working under the treasury unit. So what elective skills are those elective skills are basically your skills that the organization mainly specializes in, where one will get maximum exposure during the period of their training contract. So you'd find that someone who is attached to an auditing firm is likely to have an elective skill that is audit and assurance, whilst someone who is in taxation is likely to get an elective skill, which is taxation. So what does selecting an elective skill mean? It then means that you have to, at the end of your training contract, you have to display these skills, or you have to be able to display these skills at an advanced or in a complex context. So if you really assess, you'd find that combining the compulsory skills and the elective skills, you then get 3 core subject areas that have been covered. The remaining 4 subject areas will then fall into the residual skills. And by residual skills, we then mean that these are the rest of skills that will be required to exhibit. But however, you will not be required to highlight or to show that you can achieve these skills in an advanced experience, in an advanced environment. You can then display these skills in a basic environment or in a simple context. So this then begs the question on what really is advanced and basic. So an advanced environment is basically a comprehensive understanding of the concepts and techniques and an ability to apply these concepts and techniques in a complex situation or environment. And then for something that is basic, we are saying that a basic understanding of the concepts and techniques and an ability to apply these concepts and techniques in a simple, uncomplicated situation or environment. So it is important to distinguish between complex and simple. And in distinguishing between complex and simple, one can make the following considerations. So firstly, what is the nature of work assignments that are generally taken by the training office? So I highlighted that where an organization is mainly based in auditing, right? There is an inclination, or there is a high chance that the levels of audit or the types of audit that you will be doing will not be simple, but they will be rather complex. So that is one key consideration that one should make. Then we also should have this in our mind that within a complex assignment, there could be simple tasks that can be performed. So what really comes to mind is if you are in an auditing environment, right? You could be required to audit a basic reconciliation, that is a basic bank reconciliation. That could be termed a simple task, even though you're auditing a large organization, which is complex, which does have complex transactions, but the auditing of your basic bank reconciliation would be deemed to be a simple task. And then we also have to have this in our back of the mind that some tasks by their very nature cannot be demonstrated at a basic level. So there are some tasks that cannot be displayed at a basic level. For example, accounting for non-routine transactions. If one is required to come up with or to develop or calculate the bad debts of an entity, by its nature, that is a very complex transaction, and there is no way that you can then display that skill in a basic context. So it is important to then note that some tasks by their very nature are really cannot be demonstrated at a basic level. When we are saying advanced and basic or simple or complex, it is very important to note that we are talking in the eyes of the trainee and not the assessor. So an assessor is someone who has possibly maybe 10, 15, 20 years in the industry. So, and some things that an entry-level accountant sees as complex may not really be complex in his eyes. So it is important for us to then note that we are looking at whether something is advanced or something is basic in the eyes of the trainee or an entry-level accountant. So that is the structure of the training program. Now let's move on to the key players in the assessment process. So there are 5 main key players in the training program that participate in the assessment process. So those players are the trainee, the reviewer, the evaluator, the assessor, and the training officer. So we'll just discuss what each of these does and what each of these responsibility within the assessment process, right? Right. So the trainee is the person who is responsible for initiating the documents and performs a self-assessment of whether he or she is competent in a certain skill. So the trainee is your CTA student, is the person who wants to achieve or who wants to be an accountant or who wants to be a chartered accountant after the process. So it is important to note that it is the trainee that initiates this whole assessment process. Then after the trainee has initiated the whole process, the documents then come to the reviewer. And we're saying that the reviewer is the person the trainee reports to directly on a specific task. So the reviewer should provide an assessment of the trainee's competence in a direct response to the trainee's self-assessment of competency on a particular job. So what we are saying is the trainee, for example, let's say a trainee highlights that he or she is competent in possibly accounting for non-routine transactions. It then moves to the reviewer, who is the person who was directly responsible for that student or for that trainee during that job, or when he or she then attempted to account for non-routine transactions. So it is then the reviewer's responsibility to then give an assessment of whether the self-review done by the trainee is correct or not. Having done that, the assessment documents will then move to the evaluator, And the evaluator is responsible for reviewing evidence of competence to date and rates the trainee's level of competence every 6 months. So it is important to note that the evaluator then comes in after every 6 months. We are saying the reviewer is the one who is hands-on, who is involved on the day-to-day assessment of the trainee. But the evaluator then comes in after every 6 months to evaluate whether the trainee is meeting the certain requirements that would have been set, right? So it is the responsibility of the evaluator to identify any training needs, and he or she, that is the evaluator, finalizes the plans to address any training needs that may be identified. Though the evaluator should be the manager, should be at manager level rather, and should regularly work with the trainee. Moving on to the assessor, we are saying that the assessor assesses competence every 6 months and confirms the validity of the process. Usually, we see that the evaluator and the assessor are usually the same person, but they do not necessarily have to be. And then the final piece in the assessment puzzle is the training officer. So we are saying the training officer must be an assessor and is accountable to the institute for the proper running of the assessment process. Right. Moving on. So what we are then now saying is, we highlighted that assessment, we collect evidence, and then we evaluate whether one has achieved a certain level of competence. So we then need to set a measurement scale of whether one is competent or not. So what ICAS has done now is that it has developed what are known as rating scales. And these rating scales are sort of like the instruments that we then use to measure against, or that we then use to measure one's performance in order to then come up with a conclusion over whether one is competent or one is not yet competent, or one is not competent at all. So there are basically 4 rating scales. Rating level 1 means that one is not capable of performing, right? So we are simply saying that if you achieve a level 1, no matter how much input or assistance you get from your supervisor, you are simply unable to perform a certain task, right? And then comes the rating level 2. Rating level 2 implies that one is capable to perform a certain task with frequent supervision and intervention. So we are saying one is generally able to resolve the fundamental aspects of the task without significant assistance, and would generally not be able to start the task if left on their own or without supervision. Now comes the rating level 3, which basically we are saying that one is capable with limited or periodic supervision or intervention. So we are saying that this individual can perform a certain task, but they do require a certain level, even though it's to a small extent, a certain level of assistance from the supervisor or the manager. And then for one to achieve a rating level 4, we are then saying that one is capable to achieve a certain task without supervision or intervention. So for assessment to be fair and consistent, the rating scale should be applied consistently. That is, one individual who is training inside public practice at a certain organization should possibly come up with the same rating scale of someone who if he or she is to be assessed by someone who is in a completely different industry. So that being said, there are complexities in the rating scales, and it is important for us to highlight these. So the first complexity in terms of the rating scales is that the influence of professional skills and abilities on assessments. So we are saying that technical and professional skills should be seen as two independent requirements. And unless these two skill sets are assessed independently, a trainee's true development needs will not be identified. So here, what an example that comes to mind is that, for example, one is required to audit or to audit a certain bank reconciliation. If that trainee is required to audit or is then tasked to audit that bank reconciliation within a period of 2 hours, but the trainee is able to satisfactorily audit that section or that bank reconciliation in 1 week. That is, he takes 5 days instead of 2 hours. It is important to note that at the end of the day, that trainee, in terms of technical skills, that trainee has demonstrated competency, right? But in terms of professional skills, that trainee would not have exhibited the ability to meet deadlines. So what are we saying? We are saying that it is important for us to really separate between professional skills and technical skills. And it is possible that a trainee may be technically competent, but may lack the required professional skills in completing a certain task. Which is the example which I've just given you, where a trainee satisfactorily completes a certain section, but is unable to meet the deadline. Another complexity that then arises in the rating scales is the difference between the understanding and the ability to do. So we are saying that a trainee's understanding and their ability to do are two different issues and should be separately assessed. So we are saying trainees performing at the required entry level into the profession may be assumed to have the required understanding. And this understanding does not therefore need to be separately assessed in the training program. So we're saying here there's a big presumption. The presumption is that once you can perform a certain task satisfactorily, we are saying within the assessment process or within the ICAS training program, you are deemed to have an understanding of what you are doing, right? So sometimes one can be able to audit a certain section, but then when you then ask that student what they were doing, they may not be able to then articulate themselves. But we are saying that in terms of assessment, or in terms of the ICAS assessment, we are saying that the presumption is that once you are able to do a task, the presumption is that you understand what you were doing, and we do not need to then assess you on your ability to understand, but we only assess you on the ability to do. Right. Another complexity that arises in the rating scales is the period of the training contract, which to influence ratings. So it is incorrect for us to conclude that some competencies can only be achieved after a certain period in a training contract. So you'd find that there are some students, or there are some trainees that are so bright that when they come in first year, they're able to display certain skills that we as people who are already in the industry, or as assessors, deem to be complex. So if a first year trainee is able to do a section of work satisfactorily on their own without guidance and without any fundamental errors, they should be awarded a 4 rating. We cannot say that you are still in your first year, so we cannot give you a 4 rating, right? The time or the period of the training contract does not influence the the rating which one is given. We are saying we are assessing you on the skills exhibited. Another complexity in the rating scale is that of the influence of complexity of an assignment on rating. So here we are saying that complexity has nothing to do with demonstrated competency for a specific task. The assessment decision is made around the degree to which a trainee can perform a certain set of tasks regardless of the degree of complexity. So the complexity is considered in the 6-month monthly reviews in making the assessment of whether demonstrated competence to date meets the expected development level towards entry into the profession. And then the final complexity in the rating scale is that of prior knowledge of the trainee. So we are saying that each task submitted for review needs to be rated in the context of that assignment only. We cannot say that last period you exhibited these skills, so we are just going to assume that you are able to achieve those skills. So it is important for us to rate per assignment, not taking into consideration prior achievements. So prior knowledge of the trainee's ability or lack thereof is not considered when we are rating a certain task or the TSR or PSR. We are saying that this knowledge will be a factor to consider whether determining an overall rating in the assessments need analysis, which is the 6-month assessment. So allow me to pause here, and then in our next video, we will then cover the technicalities of assessment. Thank you.